Welcome to today's episode of Authors Learning Something New. On today's podcast, we have Lindsey Powell and Rick Tabor, who are the authors of The Silent Reaping and Children of the Scroll. On today's show, we have Lindsey Powell and Rick Tabor, the authors of Silent Reaping, which is about to come out very shortly, and Children of the Scroll, which has been out since December of 2024. So tell me about your book, Lindsey.
Yes, well, The Silent Reaping is book 2 in my romantic fantasy trilogy. It comes after The Violet Mage, which is the first book. It continues to follow the story of Ophelia, my main character. In book 1, we really kind of establish our world and the magic and the background story. And then that storyline kind of wraps up a little bit nicely, but then it opens up into the story that's going to take place for the rest of the 2 books. And then Silent Reaping really just dives right into that conflict. It picks up right where the last book left off, and it just hits the ground running. I feel like it's a lot more fast paced than the first book.
Nice. Mm-hmm. And my book is Children of the Scroll, and it's about Brian Newman, who is a young boy who his mother dies during COVID, and he stumbles upon a scroll in an abandoned synagogue, and the scroll can bring his mom back to life. That kind of power becomes very desirable to a lot of different people. Mm-hmm. And because of that, a lot of things go wrong, but it's always about him and his family struggling to hold their family together and mm-hmm. safe together, and all the pain and anguish that they had to go through to do that.
Yeah.
I'm going to ask you your special question now.
Perfect.
What was your favorite scene to write?
Yes. So the very first scene that I ever wrote, it's a fantasy romance, romantic fantasy. And so I took my favorite aspects of all of the fantasy books and movies that I've consumed, and I kind of just like made a hodgepodge of it and put them in my book. And so the first scene that actually came to my mind when I was plotting the book was a ball scene between my 2 love interests. And it's really snarky and snippy. It's very Pride and Prejudice-y, if you've seen like the newer one from like the early 2000s where they talk while they're dancing and they like take snipes at each other. It's very similar to that with they don't like each other very much at this point, and so both of them, and they're both very stubborn and very proud, so they don't take any of the hits that the other one gives, and they just snipe back and forth. But that's really where the chemistry kind of clicks between them and the love story begins. But then I also, on the flip side of that, have a scene in there where both of my main characters are archers and they end up going hunting, and my female main character gets attacked by a boar and she gets maimed pretty severely, so they have to do like field first aid, and it's in a medieval inspired setting, so you have to figure out what's the best way to kill a boar if these are the only things that you have, and how would you field dress a wound if these were the only things you had from like a picnic and you don't have like antiseptic and stuff. So it was there was a lot of research that went into it. Luckily, my husband is from East Texas and is familiar with hunting, so he was able to field a lot of those questions as well. But it's just an aspect of life that I have never, looked into before. So that was a lot of fun looking into, and just the scene itself was there was a lot of adrenaline. It was fast paced. There was a lot of emotions. It was a lot of fun to write. And then in book 2, I had an assassination attempt scene, and it was the first time. It was between 2 mages. So it was the first time I had written like a fight scene where magic was involved instead of just like, swords and knives and stuff like that. So that was a lot of fun.
Nice. I love doing research for make sure the book is the story is
consistent,
well written and consistent, believable, mm-hmm. all of those things. Yeah. So let's see. So
I have a question for you.
Oh no.
I thought of a new question.
Go ahead.
Where did you get your inspiration for your book? Where did this come from? I haven't mythology retellings and historical retellings are like really on brand and very popular right now, but I haven't come across a whole lot from like Jewish history and stuff. So I would like, where did that come from?
So we were driving along and we came to a stop sign near a culvert, and in the culvert was this elderly woman. She was bent over with a basket. Looks like she might have been picking berries or something. And
Mhm.
it was sort of dusk and sort of dark. And she said, "Dad, who is that woman?" I said, "Honey, that's the mud woman. She, she's collecting children who are out too late. That's their bedtime, and then she digests them." And so she punched me on the arm. She knows me well enough to,
Yeah.
but too much creativity and not enough sense. And but I said, "Hey, that's not a bad story possibility." And so the book started as the Mud Woman,
Hmm.
and I ultimately turned that into, from mud, into a golem,
Okay, yeah.
and that's a Jewish legendary sort of creature.
Hmm.
So the golem then came from a scroll. So that legend all sort of tied together.
Yeah.
That's ultimately that Mud Woman became the pandemic scroll. And then I said, or sorry, my beta reader said, we don't like the pandemic scroll. We don't like the Mud Woman.
Mhm.
How about Children of the Scroll? I said, yep, that makes a lot of sense. So let's go with that. So, so don't be too attached to your title is one thing I learned from that
Yes.
experience.
Yes.
But yeah. So next question for you is, if you were asked to compare your book to another book or movie that we might already know, what might that be?
Yes, this is the worst question ever. I hate trying to find comparison books for anything that I write. I even write in different genres, and that's really hard as well. But for this one, I found very difficult to find comparison books because princesses are not in style right now, and my main character is a snarky princess, and so as far as like looking into the genre at other books about princesses of any kind, there aren't really a whole lot out there, but there are a whole lot of like medieval type settings in movies and stuff. So I felt like I've had a lot more luck comparing my book to movies, to like vibes you would feel in movies. So I always say it has kind of like the atmosphere of A Knight's Tale, with like there's a tournament in it and there's some like deception going on and just some funny and snarky lines and stuff. But then it's also got like the love story feel and banter of Buttercup and Wesley from The Princess Bride, which are two of like my favorite movies. So of course they would be inspired by that. But I feel like when you start reading it, it feels like those two combined. But it does take, it does take like a darker turn. There's the world to save and there's danger afoot. So, but as if I'm comparing it to anything, those are the two movies I always come back to.
Nice. That sounds fun.
I feel like it's a
So for my book, I think it would be Dan Brown's Da
good
Vinci Code, or potentially, something by Michael Crichton, which has a lot
time.
of sciencey stuff in it.
Mhm.
So those two combined would be, if that's possible.
Yeah, no,
I've
it
tried
always
to
is.
do that, sort of.
Genre mashing, that's what we call it.
Mashing. I've mashed those two genres together with potentially a lot more action as well.
Mhm.
So that would be my genres,
Mhm.
or those would be the books that I would compare to. So here we come to the part of the show where you tell us what's the most important thing that you learned that would help another author, marketing wise, cover wise, uh, anything,
Yes.
social media wise.
Yeah, I feel like the biggest learning curve I've had, because of course you're going to find, like when you're writing, you're going to find your groove and what works for you. There's tons of tools out there to help, but ultimately I feel like that's been on me. That's been the easiest part for me. The part that's been the hardest for me is the marketing and the shouting into the void to get your work out there. And so I've learned a lot as far as social media marketing. am by no means an expert, but I have learned quite a few things as far as strategy and types of content to post and strategic wording and things like that. But being consistent has been the thing that I've come back to the most. Is you just really you've got to be consistent with your marketing. It's hard. It's hard, especially when you're a professional and you have a full-time job and a full-time family and a full-time life, and you want to also be a full-time author. And you're also a full-time marketer. So it's very challenging, but consistency is the the key.
Well, my wife tells me I have two hobbies. One
Hmm.
of them is consulting for polymer science.
Hmm.
I actually make some money doing that.
Yes.
And the other one is writing books. And so far, that one's not really profitable.
Yeah, no, not yet. It takes a while.
It's a lot more fun,
Yes.
but so far, not quite so profitable. But
Mhm.
I am looking for that Netflix contract someday. I guess the one thing that I would recommend along those lines, marketing wise, would be to I gave out my book person to person. I would know somebody like a cousin or a friend from like I actually contacted a guy from the seventh grade that I ran across his name in a eighth grade graduation thing, and I said, "Oh,
Yeah.
Kevin, yeah." I haven't talked to that guy in so long, and we were real good buddies back then. And so I contacted him. I said, "Hey, Kevin, how you doing?" We chatted for hours, and then I told him about this book, and it wasn't my intent from that point of view, but I said, why not? And he said, "Yeah, I'll read that and give you a rating." So, you know, you do all kind of crazy things,
Yeah.
with
Yes.
with your baby,
Of course, our book babies.
her book babies. All right. So, do you have a website?
I do. It's just lrpowellbooks.com.
Nice. Well done. Mine
Yes.
is ricktaber.com.
Very good.
And so show us your book again.
Mhm.
These are the books that you need to be reading, except for Lindsey, yours is also shown at the very beginning of the show, will also be shown at the very end of the show. So
Mhm.
this is her, she doesn't really have a copy because it's so
Yeah.
new. It
Yeah.
hasn't actually been printed yet, coming out end of April, right?
I think so. We're looking like an end of April release for book two.
So keep an eye out for that second book,
Mhm.
which is called The Silent
Repeat.
Reaping,
Mhm.
and it's book two in the series.
Yep. And then this one's coming out on audiobook hopefully later this month as well. So let's
Oh,
get
that's
those
awesome.
audiobook people in there.
That's awesome. There you go, readers and fellow authors. So there you go, readers, fellow authors. Thanks for watching another episode of Authors Learning Something New. If you're watching this on my YouTube channel, don't forget to hit the subscribe button. And thanks for watching, guys. Bye for now.